Hello, everyone. Welcome to Talking Logistics, where we have conversations with thought leaders and newsmakers in the supply chain logistics industry. It's our great pleasure to welcome today's program, Andrew Sisto, who's Senior Product Manager at Project 44. And today we're going to talk about the future of ocean data sharing and visibility. Now, over the past few years, there have been a lot of great advancements in freight visibility technology, particularly in trucking. But now those advancements are starting to be applied in other modes of transportation, including, ocean. So, what factors are driving these trends? How is enhanced ocean visibility providing value, to companies? And, what does the future hold? Well, those are some of the key questions we're going to address in today's episode. It's great to have Andrew on the program to share his insights and perspective on this topic. So, Andrew, welcome to the program.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
So Andrew, we've had some of your colleagues there at Project 44 in the program before. This is your first time. Whenever I bring a guest on the program for the first time, I'm always curious about how they got involved with the industry to begin with. So before we dive into kind of the specifics of today's topic, why don't you briefly share a little bit about your career background and how and why you got into this industry and what your role and responsibilities are there at Project 44?
Yeah, sure. It's funny. I think in the United States, I've never talked to somebody who woke up and went to college and said, you know what, I want to go into shipping and logistics. It's always been, somehow they fell into it or they backed into it. And my story's pretty similar in that regard. I was going to school. Actually, I was studying biochemistry, and made a pretty drastic pivot into shipping. I got hired on at Maersk, of course, one of the biggest ocean carriers in the world. And it was pretty cool for a young kid. They kind of picked me up and put me all over the world. So I did 2 years in Copenhagen, did about a year in the Netherlands, did some time in Southeast Asia and the Middle East, and worked on projects, globally. And it was really, really exciting. And then, closer to the end of my time at Maersk, I started a logistics and technology company. Maersk was actually an investor in that company, which is kind of cool. And then Project 44 wanted to launch an ocean product. I'm originally from Chicago, just super natural fit for me, and been here ever since. And we launched the product, got a lot of great reception, and of course now here we are talking to you about it.
Yeah, it's a great journey, and it's funny how things work out. I'm a material science engineer, by background. Yeah. So, and then here we are in supply chain logistics now for over 20 years. So it's funny how, somehow for a lot of engineers, or at least people that thought they want to be engineers, ultimately one way or another, sooner or later end up in this industry. At least that's been something I've been noticing as well. So
yeah, that is ironic. Look at it, 2 scientists wearing sweaters talking about shipping and logistics. How about that?
That's right. We're wearing sweaters in just as April's about to begin, because you're in Chicago and I'm in the Boston area, and that's how things are. So, but great background. So obviously you've had firsthand experience with the ocean industry. So before we kind of start talking about the future of ocean data sharing and visibility, let's talk about the way it's traditionally been done. I mean, what has been the standard approach, and kind of what challenges or limitations have shippers and carriers faced?
Yeah, sure. So, I think most shippers listening will have a similar experience about setting up an EDI transaction with a carrier. So, it kind of goes something like this. You do your yearly RFP, and maybe you have an introduction of a new ocean carrier, and all of a sudden you want to start to get the same data feeds that you had from your previous ones. So you get your IT team on the phone with the respective carrier's IT team. They set up some FTP connection. They share their EDI docs, and then they start to test and see how the differences between those different carriers' EDI specifications come through. And lo and behold, you start to get these EDI milestones, 315 milestones, kind of flowing into the TMS system. And that's largely been done the same way for a number of years. And I think it served its purpose for a period of time, and now it's time to do something a little bit different and do something a little bit better.
I think, whether it's with ocean or even other modes of transportation, I mean, EDI has historically been, particularly for the large shippers and large, logistics service providers, that's been the main mode of exchanging information. But I think as you kind of described, that process is it takes, EDI translation maps. You got to get the IT teams together from both. And it's relatively speaking a costly and time consuming and labor, intensive process, which is why, in a lot of supply chain management, EDI has been kind of relegated to just the very large companies, kind of the 80-20 rule. Let's just connect via EDI with, 20% of our trading partners. It does 80% of our transactions. But now, I think the realization is that, you really need to connect to that long tail, and you really need to simplify and accelerate the way you connect with trading partners. And certainly that's where things like APIs and web services are starting to come in. And we've certainly seen the adoption of APIs and other modes of transportation, such as trucking. I mean, is the ocean industry now starting to adopt APIs too? And kind of what's driving that adoption?
Yeah, so they definitely are. I mean, we're working with a number of large ocean carriers on just that. And also, have direct integration with a number of large ocean carriers via API, which is fantastic to see. I think, the trucking community they benefited from, regulatory changes such that, every truck needed to have an IoT device, right? And as a result, the ability to share data is drastically expanded, and it has, eliminated the need for EDI, just because you can get a lot more timely, accurate, robust information via some of the connections that that are now there because of the ELD regulations. And of course, there's no IoT device in an ocean container. I know there's some folks out there trying to do that. It's a pretty tall order, but Godspeed. And so I think there's just been a lag with ocean carriers, building out those technologies. And I also think there's a difference in trucking and ocean shipping, right? It's kind of like comparing horseshoes to hand grenades. You have trucking where minutes and hours matter, and ocean shipping where days, maybe not so much hours, matter. But of course, now with the advancement of new technologies, and carriers are looking inward to try to take advantage of a lot of the rich data that they have to better utilize their networks and things like that. You're starting to see some of these things come forward, and it's only to the benefit of shippers, because it's less rigid than EDI, more timely in terms of transmission, right? You don't have to go through the process of that FTP gateway in between, and things like that. And so we're excited to be partnering with a lot of ocean carriers on this. We see them kind of going through this phase of early adoption of API, and then realizing all the possibilities and just starting to shove more data in, which is fantastic. So it'll be a fun journey over the next coming year to work with them on this.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like it's following. I mean, that's a great distinction between obviously trucking and ocean, but I think the adoption of APIs. I think it sounds like it's going to follow similar journey that they went with trucking. Right, you started out with a few APIs, maybe for rating and some other things, and then ultimately you have this explosion where now so many other services, web services are enabled, and it seems like from your comments there that it's going to be the similar type of thing. You'll start maybe with those APIs that are kind of the low hanging fruit, or the ones that make the most sense initially. But, once the business case is kind of proven, if you will, or once the value has been realized, the library, if you will, the capabilities are going to expand from there. So from a shipper standpoint, I mean, how are their expectations regarding ocean visibility changing? I mean, why is it becoming, more important for them?
Yeah, so I think a lot of them are realizing that that the supply chain is really starting to become the tip of the spear in terms of customer satisfaction. It's not looked at like a cost center anymore. It's more so looked at as a way to experience to enhance customers' experience as it relates to doing business with various shippers. And because of this kind of mindset change that's been perpetuated by a lot of large companies out there, next day delivery type stuff. I think shippers are starting to realize, look, we need to enhance our own capabilities operationally, and start to be more proactive in managing exceptions, and of course data has a huge impact into their ability to do that, but also to use their data to enhance their own customers' experience, or the experience of those folks doing warehouse activities on their behalf, or managing stores on their behalf, right? And giving them visibility into what's coming, what's on the way, how our purchase order is moving, all those sorts of things. And so as a result of this kind of mindset shift, I think shippers are looking at, the legacy technology and just seeing that it served a purpose, and it might not get us where we want to go in the future. So let's look elsewhere to see what we can do to really take our company to the next level with these capabilities.
Yeah, and I think you brought up. I mean, I like you brought up the customer experience standpoint, because I think that ultimately gets to being able to answer those questions, right? Where's my order? Where's my shipment? And so forth. And historically, if you've had these black holes within your end-to-end supply chain, it's been difficult to answer that. But I think part of being able to answer that effectively, or the kind of the broader value proposition. I mean, it's one thing to know, okay, where's the ship right now, or has it arrived at port? But it's really the nested visibility, I would think, that's important, right? So I'm being able to link together the ship with the container, with what orders are in there, what SKUs are in there, and having that visibility, so you can then, to your point, be able to allocate orders to inventory in motion, for example, understand what your inventory positions are, and so forth. But it's really having that nested visibility, right?
Yeah, absolutely. We're hearing more and more customers like, just the traditional bill of lading, visibility isn't important. They want to go 1, 2, 3 levels down, right? They want to be able to look at, what purchase orders are in what containers, what SKUs are assigned to those, how much value are those containers, right? If I only have so many resources, right, where should I prioritize based on value of product or needs of the product, inside those containers? So we're starting to hear and see a lot more of that from some of the, some of our really innovative customers who are approaching us with these types of problems. And I think, one of the other things that we're starting to see a lot more of, especially in the ocean shipping space, is that, ocean shipping is an ecosystem, right? Containers don't have wheels. It takes a drayage provider to pick it up from the port and bring it back into the terminal, right? It moves around within a terminal, gets on a ship, might get another ship. It does that at destination too. And so we're seeing a lot more customers, looking at this ecosystem as a whole, and parties who can connect dots between the various parts of the ecosystem is really that next level of visibility. And of course, it's hard to do that with EDI, right? It's hard to discover where containers are along that ecosystem journey via EDI, because you can't. You've got to rely on somebody sending you that data proactively rather than doing that discovery. And so we're seeing a lot of shippers approach us with questions like, well, why do I lose visibility when I ship on the spot market or through an MVO, and how can you help me with that? And one of our answers is being able to connect throughout that ecosystem really gives us the chance to discover where containers are, tell you, rather than being reliant on somebody sending you that data via an EDI file, right? So there's a lot of dynamics of play, and there's a lot of different stages of shippers' experience with going through ocean visibility. But I think certainly the PO SKU level, that next level down detail, is super important. And then the other piece that's really important is recognizing that we need visibility across this ecosystem.
Yeah, that's a great point. I think a lot of the aggregation, I mean, how much, it really takes place in terms of being able to aggregate all this data from all these different, sources, right? And being able to connect those dots as you described there. I mean, how are shippers, leveraging this ocean data and visibility? I mean, are they integrating it to their, TMS systems, to the BI systems? I mean, what's your experience in terms of, from a shipper standpoint, how, where is this data being consumed?
Yeah, so of course the TMS system is very prevalent, and we're seeing a lot of really advancements in technology on the TMS side. Of course, we've got a lot of great connections on on the TMS front, and our partners, various TMS providers, they're making and releasing a lot of really sophisticated technology, and it's very, very cool and exciting to be a part of it. But something that I've been seeing more and more of is shippers spinning up business intelligence tools and using the data for business intelligence purposes, to help establish, is my network designed the right way, right? Do certain terminals have a faster throughput than other terminals? And if so, does that cost us, money, or does that cost us time getting products, through ports to our DCs, right? Or, where am I incurring more detention and demurrage? Is that cost, high enough or higher than would it be to reroute cargo, via the East Coast, for example, right? So we're seeing a lot of these types of questions being asked, and I think again, having open APIs to consume ocean data and have those integrated with business intelligence tools are really valuable for our customers. And again, I've been seeing it more and more, and it's awesome to see that innovation kind of take place.
Yeah, that's a great point, because I mean, I think ultimately with every type of visibility that people talk about, the question always becomes, well, how do we derive business value out of the visibility? And it ultimately comes by, being able to connect those dots, right? Being able to analyze the data and uncover those areas for continuous opportunity, improvement opportunities, or things that may not be intuitive, right? With all the spreadsheets that people may be dealing with or faxes and everything else, now being able to aggregate that data together, being able to combine it with other data, that I think where I see a lot of companies that are getting value is, being able to see that big picture now for the first time and see it in a more real time, manner where they can take some, proactive action, to either drive continuous improvement or to, eliminate some potential risk or a bottleneck that might potentially affect their, supply chain. Andrew, we're running short on time here, so I'm just going to get, right to my last question here. I mean, as a way to wrap up, I mean, what questions should companies, ask themselves, to assess whether they're a laggard or a leader when it comes to ocean shipping visibility?
Yeah, so that's a really good question, and I don't know if I have the best answer for that, but what I have seen is that, the initiation of this journey of trying to understand, what we're doing with our data really is starting with how do we better manage exceptions, right? And then it's morphing into like, well, what can we do to drive business value with this information? And so if you think about, managing exceptions as the starting point to being, starting to think about real-time visibility and utilizing that to solve business problems, and you think about the end point being, how do we drive real business impact, both monetary as well as, increasing customer experience is kind of the end place where a lot of customers are finalizing. So, I think, if you're starting to, if you aren't asking the questions of how do I better and more proactively manage exceptions within my current supply chain, I think, you might need to start to move into that route. And then once you start to solve those types of problems, you start to explore areas of how do I, use this data to enhance customer experience? How do I use this data to drive business value? How do I use this data to amend my network where it needs to be? And so I think that's kind of like this adoption curves or this laggard leader, curve, if you will. And I think they really have to have an open conversation with themselves. Like, where are we in that thought process? Are we where we want to be? Or are we just starting to scratch the surface around, how can we better use our current people and stop, searching companies' websites for data, or, better managing exceptions.
No, great food for thought. And I think, as we mentioned earlier, I think, I think when it comes to ocean visibility, and I think we're at the, early stages here of what's possible. But I think, as we've seen in trucking and the other modes, I think it's going to continue to evolve relatively quickly. So I think keeping a pulse on what's happening here is going to be important for everyone that's involved. So we're like I always say at the end of all our episodes, we always manage to scratch the surface of these topics, but you provided some great insights and food for thought for folks. So thank you for making the time to be with us today.
Yeah, thanks for having me. And, hopefully we can do part 2 of ocean visibility at some point and get a little bit deeper.
Absolutely. Well, I got to ask another question. You being from Chicago, me from Boston, do you think we'll see a Red Sox Cubs World Series this year?
Boy, I hope so. That would be a delight, wouldn't it?
That'd be a delight.
Anyway, so that'd be pretty cool. Honestly, that'd be pretty fun.
Awesome. Well, that'll be another excuse for us to get together at some future time if that happens. Well, I want to thank those of you that joined us today. If you're watching this episode on demand, either at the Project 44 website or on Talking Logistics, and you've got a question or a comment for Andrew, you can post it there. I'm sure he'll be more than happy to respond via that medium. Again, thank you for joining us, and I look forward to seeing you in a future episode of Talking Logistics. Have a great day.